The Wishkeeper exotic bow is finally here in Season of the Wish, and I've already tested out with a couple of different strand builds. I already planned on making an updated Hunter strand build, especially with the bonuses on the artifact, but this bow just really brought it together. Now, I'm not going to give you any spoilers about the mission or anything like that. Definitely experience it for yourself. If you want a guide, definitely look one up. It's honestly a very easy mission, even soloable. It's still very easy, but let's just dive right into it. So let's talk about the exotic bow. Now, it is craftable just like previous exotic mission weapons that we can get. Again, over the next coming weeks, we are going to get bonuses to the Snare Weaver intrinsic perk. If you don't know what it does, precision hits and final blows build energy towards the Snare Weaver arrow that can be fired from the hip. On impact, Snare Weaver arrows create a pattern of traps to suspend nearby targets. Essentially, it's a mix between Hierarchy of Needs and the Verglas curve. Again, we need the precision hits and kills to build up the main arrow, and then we can hip fire it to use it. And again, we'll be able to get a variety of bowstrings and arrows on top of that with grips. And then we have its trait perk, which is Silkbound Slayer, which automatically comes on the weapon. So this weapon deals bonus damage to suspended targets, gain faster draw time for a short duration when you suspend a target from any source or damage a suspended target with this weapon. Suspend is going to be a big factor with this bow and it performing very well. And like I said, over the next coming weeks, we will be able to get some catalyst refits for it. Again, we can get Vorpal Weapon refit with Hatchling refit as well, but we do have some two perks that are very specific toward it, which is Enduring Snare refit, so Snare Weaver traps last longer. Then we also have Multi-Threaded Snare refit, which Snare Weaver traps can suspend more targets. And we're going to be pairing the bow with the 6th Coyote exotic chest armor, and its perk, pretty basic. You gain a second dodge charge. Now, I do want to cover the Threadrunner subclass before we dive into the artifact perks, because we do have a couple of options that we can use with this build and we can switch in and out. So I'm going to go over those. So for this first setup, I'm going to be using the Marksman's dodge because that's a faster cooldown than Gambler's dodge. Main reason is because I'm going to be using the ensnaring slam aspect. So you can activate your air move to consume your class ability energy and dive to the ground, suspending all nearby targets on impact. That's kind of the main thing with this. I want a faster dodge cooldown so I can use it more often. Now, for other stuff, I'm using triple jump for movement, but you can use what you like. We have the one melee, which is the threaded spike. No, it can hit multiple targets and sever them. And then I'm going to be using the grapple for the grapple melee portion. And then our other aspect I'm going to be using, which will be on both builds, is the whirling maelstrom. So destroying a tangle will weave a violent writhing mass of strand fibers. The strand mass seeks out and damages targets, emitting unraveling projectiles when it defeats them. So that's the main thing, is unravel. And we're going to talk about why this is important when we get to the artifact perks. For our fragments, I'm going to be using Thread Generation, so any damage I deal gives me grenade energy. It is on -10 to discipline, but we can get the grapple back pretty quickly. Highly recommend Thread of Warding, so when you pick up an Orb of Power, you get Woven Mail, which increases damage resistance. No, it is a -10 to resilience. I like Thread of Mind with this one, so defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy, which means we can get that dodge back faster, which means we can use Ensnaring Slam again. And then for the last one, I like Thread of Wisdom, so defeating a suspended target creates an Orb of Power. For the second setup, I did change out a couple things. So for this one, I'm going to be using the Gambler's dodge, mainly so when I dodge near target, I can get my melee back. And again, we will have two dodges, so I can throw a melee, dodge near target, get my melee again, use it again, dodge again, and we can kind of have this continuous cycle because of the other things on mods and the artifact and whatnot. But I'm still using triple jump, but I traded out the grapple for the shackle grenade. Again, you toss this out, it'll suspend targets. The main reason is because I actually switched out Ensnaring Slam for Widow's Silk. Widow's Silk gives me an additional grenade. So now I get 2 shackle grenades, which means I can suspend more targets. I am still using Whirling Maelstrom though. Now for fragments, I am still using Generation, Warding, and then Wisdom, but I switched out Mind for Continuity. So with Continuity, Suspend, Unravel, and Sever effects applied to targets have an increased duration. So all of the effects that will be causing, Suspend, Sever, and Unravel, will be able to proc all 3. All of those things will last longer. Now with the artifact, we do have some cool strand bonuses. First up being Unraveling Orb. So picking up an Orb of Power grants strand weapons Unraveling rounds, which means the bow can get Unraveling rounds, which means it can proc Unraveling and also deal with anti-barrier champions. Just make sure you don't have Unstoppable Bow on. If you still want to rock Unstoppable Bow, that's fine. I don't think you could take advantage of both with the bow at the same time, so just keep that in mind. But that leads into Horde Shuttle. So damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threading. So any target that's affected by Unravel, whether it is with the bow or with our Whirling Maelstrom and all the unraveling projectiles going out, we can also spawn threadlings on top of everything else we're doing. I'm also going to take advantage of Flame, Fiber, and Freeze for the Solar Strand Siphon mod on the helmet. Also recommend Flint Striker if you're going to be using a solar weapon, which I'd highly recommend. So Rapid Solar Weapon, Precision Hits, and Final Blows. That's kind of going to be the main one here. those will grant you Radiant. Now, once you're Radiant, we do get a couple bonuses. First up being Kindling Trigger. So our solar weapons will be able to apply Scorch to unscorched targets while we're Radiant, and will deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and Stasis debuffs. With all these Strand debuffs we're going to be causing, Radiant and proccing it, once we get it, it's basically just free bonus weapon damage for all of our weapons across the board. Now, I would also recommend From Whence You Came for the increased ability damage to take into scoring combatants. Wishing to Being I really like, because when your super is nearly full, ability final blows spawn orbs of power. It's basically just free orbs of power. And then I personally like Argent Ordnance since I'm going to be using a rocket, so it'll do increased damage. It does consume an armor charge, but might as well get the free damage. You could switch this out for Solar Operative if you would like as well, but this is how I like my setup. Next, let's talk about the armor mods. Like I said, I am taking advantage of the Solar Strand Dual Siphon mod, so Rapid Solar and Strand Weapon Final Blows will create orbs of power for me. And then I personally like hands-on, so I gain bonus super energy on melee kills, but you could also use Dynamo as well. So it reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. And again, if you need ammo, you could switch out for Heavy Ammo Finder, Special Ammo Finder, whatever, but I like this setup. On the gauntlets, I do like Impact Induction, so when I cause damage with my melee attack, it gives me a cooldown to my grenade. And then with Focusing Strike and Bolstering Detonation, anytime I do melee damage or grenade damage, it gives me a cooldown to my class ability. If you did want to switch one of these out for Impact Induction, so you have double Impact Induction, so you get more grenade back whenever you use your melee, that's totally fine. On the chest piece, you can rock whatever combination of reserve and resistance mods. Again, I do like solar reserves because I'm using a solar rocket and solar special weapons, and then whatever resistance mods that you'd like. On the boots, I like recuperation, so whenever I pick up an orb of power, I get health back. Considering there's not any way on the subclass to gain health back, again, we do get damage resistance with Woven Mail, but you definitely want something that gives you just health back immediately just like that. And I'm also rocking Solar and Strand Weapon Surge, so I gain bonus damage to those weapon types when I have any armor charge. My armor charge now decays over time. Essentially, when you collect an orb of power, you gain an armor charge. With this build, we can have 3. With any of these blue mods, it makes your armor charge last 10 seconds. So if we have 3 armor charges, that's 30 seconds of this bonus weapon damage. On the class item, I like using Bomber, so when I use my class ability, it reduces my grenade cooldown. I also like Reaper, so shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. Note, there is a 10-second cooldown between this, but it doesn't really matter considering we're going to have the dodge almost constantly anyway with both builds. You might as well take advantage of it for the free orbs of power. And then lastly, I like Time Dilation, so your decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so that 10 seconds that I mentioned actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds, so at 3 armor charges, we get 45 seconds of bonus weapon damage. Now for stats to focus on, we talk about every video, try to have tier 10 100 resilience. It's a 30% damage reduction, and you definitely want to take advantage of that for survivability purposes. Now after this, I would recommend mobility. Again, mobility is also tied to our class ability for the Hunter. Again, that means we can get the dodge back faster the higher this is, but I also like Discipline as well. Discipline is tied to your grenade stat on how fast we can get that grenade back. You don't really need to focus on strength considering we can get it back fairly quickly with the mods and other perks here under the subclass, but you could also do Intellect, which is tied to how fast your super is. Like I said, you can kind of mess with it with how you like, but the main one here is to have tier 10 resilience. Now going over weapon options, like I said, I'm going to main the Wish Keeper in the primary slot. Being able to suspend targets and do more damage to them from any source as long as they're suspended is just absolutely hilarious. But if you did want to change out some options, again, a special option would be Scatter Sigil, especially with Slice and Controlled Burst. So after we use that class ability, we can apply Sever to the target with this, and it can also use the Unraveling Orbs on the artifact. It can have the Swordbreaker Strand 1-2 punch if you'd like. For primaries, the Michael's Reverence, again, this is a sidearm. It can use Anti-Barrier this season. Quicksilver Storm, Rufus's Fury, both great strand options that can take advantage of Overload. But again, I'm going to be maining the bow, like I said. In the energy slot, I would recommend a special weapon. I have this Acacia's Dejection, again, Reconstruction, Incandescent. This thing can proc all the bonuses with Radiant on the artifact, which is great. Same thing here with Cartesian Coordinate here. Lead from Gold, Vorpal Weapon. This thing's fantastic. But if you did want to switch this out, again, you can change this over to Scatter Sigil. You can use a primary, anything like the Epital Integration, Callous Mini Tool, Abyss Defiant. These things are craftable. These have Incandescent. Even the new Pulse Rifle that could be crafted, the Ad Hortative. I guess it's like not new, but again, it's newly craftable. It's an old weapon technically, but it can come with Incandescent as well. You can also use Sunshot. If you're going to be using a solar primary weapon though, I would highly recommend switching out Argent Ordnance for Razor Precision. So while you're Radiant, you can also cause ignitions on solar precision final blows. And lastly, in the heavy slot, rock whatever your favorite solar heavy weapon is. I like Apex Predator, Recon, Bait and Switch. Again, if I want to go precision, I have this crafted Cataclysmic, 4 times the charm, Bait and Switch. You could use something like Dragon's Breath as well, very passive, but can also do really good damage, especially with Argent Ordnance on the artifact. You can use Galhorn, use whatever your favorite solar heavy weapon is. So if you got through all that and you're still a little confused about how this build works, I'm going to break it down for you. But essentially, as long as you use your weapons in tandem with your abilities, you're going to have every strand debuff on the field, and on top of that, the bow is going to be able to do increased damage to any of those suspended targets. So again, the main thing here when getting into a gunfight is being able to suspend targets. So whether that's with Ensnaring Slam, whether that's with the Shotgun Grenade, whether that is getting the Wish Keeper perk up to use Snare Weaver, essentially as long as you can suspend combatants, this is where a couple of bonuses kick in, especially Thread of Wisdom. So when you defeat a suspended target, you also create an Orb of Power. So if you're using the bow and you get rapid kills with Thread of Wisdom, guess what? Strand Siphon kicks in as well, so there's another Orb of Power that you can create. Again, once you pick those up, you gain the Strand and Solar Weapon Surge, so now you can get that bonus damage to take advantage of. Now, outside of the suspending factor and how much you can actually just abuse that, creating tangles is also going to be a big portion here, especially being able to proc Whirling Maelstrom. That'll be able to send out all those unraveling projectiles, so then you can take advantage of Horde Shuttle on the artifact. So any target that is affected by an unravel and you shoot them will spawn a Threadling, quote-unquote, occasionally. When it says occasionally, it means quite often. So it could be like a red bar enemy that's affected by Unravel, and you kill them, and it can spawn a Threadling, which is just absolutely hilarious. And then also you'll be able to sever targets with your melee, which can also spawn tangles as well. And by the time your Whirling Maelstrom is up, you're more than likely have already created another tangle ready to go to use with Whirling Maelstrom. And again, that's really good for just ad control in general. Like I said, you gain the bonus weapon damage from picking up Orbs of Power with armor charges, but you also gain Woven Mail for that extra damage resistance. Recuperation kicks in as well, giving you health back each time. Plus, if you decide to use your solar weapons to proc Flint Striker, again, all you need to do is either get rapid precision hits or just final blows with your solar weapons. Again, that'll proc Flint Striker. Plus, with the solar siphon portion on the helmet, you can create Orbs of Power for free. But the main thing is being able to proc Torch. So while you're Radiant, you'll deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand debuffs. So any target that's affected by your Sever from your melee, your Unravel from Whirling Maelstrom, or Suspend from basically every source that you have here with your arsenal, you'll be able to deal even more increased weapon damage as long as you're Radiant. This build is really focused around abusing the Hunter's ability arsenal on top of a bow that can take advantage of Suspend, Unravel, and be able to deal even more damage to any targets that are just floating in the air. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Season of the Wish updated 6 Coyote build paired with the Wish Keeper exotic bow. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the build dim link for this in the description, so if you want to copy everything that I'm using down to the subclass, the mods, the artifact perks, some of the weapons as well if you have them, even the drip if you'd like. Some people are always asking me about shaders and what ornaments that I'm using. Again, you can copy all that from that dim link, test it out, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, is there something that you like using with this build in particular? Do you like switching out something on the subclass, something on the armor mods? Definitely let me know, because I'm testing stuff out in this game all the time. In any event, if what you saw was valuable or entertaining to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another build video here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok simultaneously across the board. So if you want to tune into a live stream, again, we will be live 3 days a week in the evening starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are mainly going to be playing Destiny 2. Again, we are doing dungeon carries, Warlord's Ruin dungeon carries, so if you need help with it, we can definitely get you in the queue. But we're also going to be playing other games, and if you want to be proactive, join my Discord, because that's where we're going to be chatting. And we also have people looking to play Destiny 2 together, and we're also talking about other games, PC tech, anime, and more. And lastly, if you want to support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is cheaper, and the main benefit with it is you get access to all of my videos early as a member, no matter what tier you are. But there are some other benefits in there that I would recommend checking out. And if you would like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.